little bit different. Death, dying, the afterlife, ghosts. Yes, she does cover that on her website and her books and everything else. So we're going to go a little woo-woo when we come back. I want to remind you folks, if you're not getting a good night's sleep right now, it could be for a number of different reasons, up to and including the fact that you may be being bombarded with EMF radiation attacks. And there's a way you can get past that.
Are you having trouble sleeping? In this video, we'll be talking about a natural remedy using orgonite shungite sleep protection. Most people have problems sleeping because of the electronic pollution that's in the environment. Things like the Wi-Fi and television and the electronics that are in your home. Studies have shown that turning off the router, the television, and the computer reduces sleepless nights. Although you can shut off the electronic pollution in your home, you still can't control the electronic pollution that comes into your home from things like cell phone towers. If you're in an apartment complex, the router in the room next door, or in a motel, these are things you can't control. So you can't turn these things off, and they can still beam in your bedroom while you're trying to sleep. Hi, I'm Tavon Rivers from Fix the World, and I suffered from insomnia for years until I found this solution. This is an Orgone Energy sleeping pod. It creates a shield of protection around your body to allow you to sleep while blocking away the electronic pollution that's in the environment. So let me explain what happens. When you're bombarded with electronic pollution, it constantly stimulates your brain. Now, this constant stimulation prevents your brain from creating something called melatonin. Now, melatonin is a hormone that's created in the pineal gland that regulates your sleeping patterns. If you're being bombarded by electronic pollution, that's why you can't sleep. When you're able to shield your body from electronic pollution, you rest more deeply, and you can do this without any pills. So you'll wake up energized, you will think more clearly, and you wake up with more energy. Basically, you feel better. This Orgone Energy sleeping pod is made from a composite of powders of shungite, iron oxide, quartz, and brass powders, all encased in an epoxy resin. Orgone Energy refers to the energy that exists in all nature and living beings. And I make each one of these by hand. Orgonite, which is what this is a natural technology. It passively creates negative ions in the air that can be measured with sensitive equipment. Now, we made this Orgone Energy sleeping pod in a sleek design that conforms to your hand. So it's very nice to touch and is also in a nice, tranquil blue color. We've been testing these pods ourselves while we've been sleeping. And I can say my wife and I have been sleeping better than we've slept in years. The other feature of this product is that it fits nicely in the palm of your hand. So it's very portable. You can take it anywhere you go, especially if you travel. This has been a godsend for us because my wife and I travel a lot, and it can be difficult to fall asleep when you're not in the comfort of your own home. We have a special offer for our sleeping pods that you can get at the special price below. We also have a special deal where you can order 2 sleeping pods for you and your partner for a combined discount. So don't delay, order your sleeping pod below and start sleeping better and feeling better than you have in years. At Fix the World Morocco, we've been making our handmade EMF protection products since 2017, and we've shipped all over the world to many thousands of customers. If you have any questions, you can contact us or view our many videos we've created that explain the science and testimonies behind each of our products. Be sure to visit our website, ftwproject.com. Thanks for watching.
All right, just head on over to our website, actually, theawakenation.com. Go to Sponsors Row on the right side of the page and click the link to order your sleeping pod. This will eliminate EMF radiation from your bedroom. Put it under your pillow or under your mattress, whatever. It's fantastic. You'll if you've been hearing things in your ear that are not, and you're not schizophrenic or some weird thing like that. If you just, it could be you're picking up radio waves and EMF and all that good stuff. Get yourself one of these. It's fantastic. Okay.
I like the way you prefaced it. It will not cure schizophrenia.
Not cure schizophrenia. Let's bring in our very next and wonderful guest, Dr. Rita Louise, to the Awake Nation.
Hi, guys.
Hey, good morning. What a pretty dress you have on.
Yes, I love it.
Thank you. And I always hear like weird voices, but I don't think that I'm schizophrenic.
No, no.
You know, it's amazing how they called the implementation of V2K voice of God.
Now, here I have a story to tell you guys both. And Penny,
Okay.
you've not heard this one before. This is interesting. This happened to me just the other day. Now, I happened to be going out to grab. I saw our postal carrier coming up the walkway, so I went to get the mail, from him, and he was telling me a story. Now, he happens to know that I do this show. For some reason, he's a fan. He watches the show. So we're, and he knows that we cover a lot of stuff on this show too. So he said, I got a story to tell you. He says, you're not going to believe this. I said, well, let's hear it. He goes, well, he said, on my carrier route, one of the places that I have is a nursing home. And he actually told me where this nursing home is. I said, yeah, I know where that is. It's 2 blocks over. And he said, yesterday, this was like a Tuesday. And he goes, yesterday, I went to deliver the mail to the nursing home Monday morning. And he says a lot of times some of the residents in that nursing home it's actually more of an assisted living facility than a nursing home. But nonetheless, he said they'll come out to the front room. They have like a front room there. And they'll wait for me to show up at the mail. Because, that's a highlight of their day is getting their mail, right? And he said, so I walk in the front door and he says, there's this lady there that I see all the time. And, he said, good morning. And he said, I don't have any mail for you today. Like she didn't have anything. And she said to him, can you see me? He goes, yeah, never, didn't think much more of it. He passed out the mail to the residents in the front room. And then, of course, to those who didn't come up, he goes to the individual rooms, their little rooms, and delivers the mail. And he's going up and down the hallway, and he comes to the door of the room that the woman said, can you see me? And he noticed some attendants in there that were packing things up and wrapping up her sheets and all this kind of stuff. And he said, what's going on? She said, oh, she died last night. So she's dead, but she's sitting in the front room saying, can you see me? When he comes to deliver the mail. So if you don't believe in life after death, folks, maybe you better take a second look. And the reason I wanted to address this with you, Dr. Reed, is because I know that a lot of people know that you're an intuitive and a medical intuitive and a counselor, and you deal with psychological issues and couples. And we talked about last time we were on, we talked about narcissism, but you also cover some of these topics such as life after death and attached entities. I want to kind of get into that a little bit today. So how did you get involved in these things that are kind of like outside the normal realm of psychology?
Not necessarily intentionally. How's that?
Okay.
So, and I have to preface this whole thing. So I grew up in this house that was built in the late 1800s, and there was the dead guy that lived in the basement. And so nobody ever wanted to go to the basement, but there was an extra refrigerator down there, and you would like be tasked, like go get a gallon of milk or whatever. And, there was this procedure, like open the door, flip the light on, run down the stairs, turn the light on, open the refrigerator, grab something and run back, turning everything off. And so that was already creepy enough. So I already had like this whole ghost creepy thing. Then I went to college, and when I could live off campus, I moved into this really cool old house, only to find out that it had been the town funeral parlor. And it was really freaking haunted, and I would be there by myself a lot. So that just added to like the ghost creepy thing. But I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute, and they had little opportunities to go do stuff. And so one of the things that they did was you could be part of a house healing team. And so you would go with a group of other psychics to a location to do an assessment, so like looking for ghosts, looking for vortexes, looking for issues on the land, looking for whatever came up. And, so I would go and it's like, oh, there's some dead guy, and it was weird because it didn't scare me, seeing the dead person. And I have come to discover that, I won't go into a room when the lights are off, like in a funky place, because if there's a noise, I'll jump,
Yeah.
And so I did that. And then years later, I got contacted by a ghost hunting team because they were looking for an intuitive to be part of the team. And I'm like, okay. And, did that for a while. So, and it was fun.
I can imagine it would be. Now, you said that when this initial house that you lived in as a child that was haunted by this person, did your parents know that when they bought the house, first of all? And also, did anybody investigate the history of why that guy was down there? Did he die in that basement? What happened?
So even though I know my mom was sensitive, like we didn't have a clothes dryer, and I'm from New York. And so she had these clotheslines that went up and down this long hallway in one part of the basement, which was where the dead guy was. And she would be like hanging clothes up, and then she'd send me down there, take the clothes down, and I'd get in trouble because I would just rip the clothes off the hooks and just like get out of there fast. It's interesting because all my brothers and sisters knew about the dead guy, but we never talked about it until we were an adult, which was really
isn't that
Did you ever
weird?
find out like who he was, or
so.
did you ever see him?
So you could feel him, and it felt like there was a violent thing that happened. And so there was a deli around the corner that was owned by Mr. Gruberg, and he said that somebody had been killed in the house. And I'm like, it's the dead guy.
Oh man.
But no one ever like did an investigation, or that was like way before that kind of thing was popular at all.
Go ahead,
What was
Penny.
your thought about the postman who always delivers seeing the woman that said, "Can you see me?" What was your thoughts? Like,
He was freaked out, and for some reason I've always, because I'm a Christian, right, that I believe in life after death. I also believe that there are some entities that haven't quite crossed over, and that's why people see apparitions.
because she just died, so she was still there, and she was probably like, "Why am I here?
I mean,
Can you see me? Where's my body?"
So the theory is that it takes like 30 days for you to permanently make the shift and do the life review. And during that time, you have the opportunity to like say hi, say goodbye to people and do that kind of thing. So like in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, there's this whole process of sitting with the body, and praying so that
Which would be Shiva, right?
Praying.
Sitting Shiva.
Same, exactly. I have a friend who's also a medical intuitive who's in Australia, and she had a heart attack. Something happened, and she was having a near-death experience. And I trust her because she's very good. And she said, well, I thought I just woke up from sleeping because she was in bed. But she gets out of bed and she turns around and her body's in the bed. So now she's freaking out, and she's like trying to wake her husband up and trying to do all of these things, but she's dead. And so I could see with this woman making with that kind of mentality, this woman making the transition, it's like now nobody can see her, and if you're sensitive, on some level, or open to it, then I could see where he could see her, just in a very transient way.
Yeah, it's almost like a glow, not or a hologram type thing, and that while you're dissipating slowly into spiritualness or whatever it is, but it freaked him out. But when I said, well, I said I have never had like that kind of an experience, but I have seen things. For example, like when my father-in-law died, the day of his funeral, we were all sitting around my mother-in-law's house, and after the funeral and everything, and saying things, kind of like talking to him and saying, well, you finally made it, Dad, because he was in a lot of pain. He was suffering. And, hope everything's okay. And all of a sudden the lights in the house started flashing and all this kind of stuff. And then it stopped. And there are those who believe that when someone passes away, if to let you know they made it without scaring you, sometimes they will send a cardinal, the bird, the cardinal, visit you. And every time someone has died that I've known, we've seen a cardinal the very next day, like land on our fence or. So I believe I'm already convinced of that. So that didn't freak me out, but it certainly freaked the postman, the post guy out. He was like,
well, we just had an individual who's on our trauma triage team, Dr. Rita, who recently passed, and he died in his sleep. I was told when I was doing another show on Friday that he had passed, and Friday night, well, it's actually Saturday because we get off at 11:30 and we talked until 12. I had a dream about him. I had two dreams, and I believe he came to talk to me and let me know basically how he died. I talked to him for a very long time. I couldn't remember the first conversation, but I talked to him for like an hour, and then I went back to sleep. And then I had this is pretty funny. I kind of pulled my back out, and I thought it was one of the puppies. I'm like, damn, I need to start working out. And it was actually one of the bigger dogs, which she's like 25 pounds, and her name is Angel. Right. So an Angel will sneak in the house real fast, but then when you pick her up to try and take her out, she'll put her feet in the door jamb, and she'll, so that's how my back got a little tweaked. So, and I didn't realize that till the next day, but so Angel messed up my back a little bit, and I had this cream that I put on it. It's like a hot sauce, and I put it on it. Well, in the dream, Mark said to me, my shoulders hurt. My neck and my shoulders really hurt. And I said, well, I could put some of this stuff on you. And he looked at me like, really? Because I'm having a heart attack. And then he got up, and he was still dressed in his full garb. And he looked out, and the sky was just beautiful. And I saw his side profile as he was looking into the sky. And I woke up, and I realized that I talked to Heather in our trauma triage team. She said, that's really the signs of a heart attack, is that your shoulders hurt, because he kept saying, my time is short. My time is short. I couldn't understand what he was talking about. What do you mean your time is short? And he had a heart bypass 5 years before. So I think he was having those pains for a long time. And he knew that inevitably that it was coming. And he had just faced some very radical trauma in Dodge City, in which I said, hey, get out of Dodge. He was a wonderful person. I had a great sense of humor. We just did a trauma triage tribute to him this last Monday. So, they will come to you. They'll come to you shortly after. They'll talk to you in dreams. They may actually appear as an apparition in front of you, like David's male guy said, he saw the apparition, but I mean, he wasn't scared because she said, hey, can you see me? He's like, yeah.
Or a favorite song will come on.
He wasn't scared. He wasn't scared till he found out she's dead.
Right?
He got scared.
But speaking of dreams, all right, so I'm not a dreamer particularly. I go to sleep, I'm out, the world blows up, I'm still asleep, and then and I wake up.
And you say, hey, why is there no world here?
Pretty much. And so one night I had this dream about my uncle Johnny, and I'm in this like weird gray place, and he's way overweight. He's walking toward me, and he wanted me to do a Reiki healing on him, which I don't even think he even knew what that was, but he's walking to me, and I'm like, okay. And he gets close to me, but not all the way to me. And he goes, no, I'm okay now. And the dream ends, and I wake up, and I'm like, okay, that's just really weird. But every spidey sense in me said, okay, now you just need to wait for the phone call.
Right.
And 10 o'clock that morning, my uncle had died. And I think he was in that process of dying when he came to me looking for some help with the release, and he finally let go. Makes me want to cry just thinking about that story.
People that we love, we know that there is an afterlife. And now your friend does too, David. Your male
Yes,
guy.
yes,
He
he
knows.
does. Yes, he does. And I told him to stop bringing me bills, or if he doesn't want them.
Don't bring me bills just because you can see dead people doesn't mean nothing to me.
You know,
Now,
and
go ahead.
I'm just going to make some commentary. You know, people think that when you die, you know, and I'm going to say you go to heaven, you know, but there's this kind of, you know, I don't want to say it's a weird belief. I mean, it's a belief, but that you're like locked up in heaven, you know, like it's a one-way ticket. And once you're there, you can't ever leave. And many times the ghosts we experience, like there's the ones that just passed, but then there are other ones that, you know, you're getting married and someone sees grandma, or you have a new baby, you know, and somebody turns up, you know, it doesn't mean they're a demon or some evil thing. It's like, you know, they can get like a weekend pass and leave heaven and come and experience life events with you.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
believe.
Susie told me she went to go see this pastor. I think his name was Wilkerson, who is a very famous pastor. And we went to the graveyard, and of course it was off of Penny Lane. And when we got there, I'd been talking to this woman who was the wife of Ace Frehley from the band Kiss. And I looked at the gravestone, and they had the same last name as this person. I looked at the gravestone, I said the name, and then that person called me, which that really creeped me out. But Susie said that he came to her, the pastor came to her. That's why we went down there. And he said, I don't think I'm supposed to be talking to you. And she's like, it's okay. You're dead, but it's all right. You can still talk to me. So maybe they don't know what the rules are for a while. I don't think I'm supposed to be talking to you. She's like, no, it's all right. You can talk to me.
Yeah.
I think God makes allowances for certain things, and I think He does it in such a way that people will not necessarily be frightened. In other words, there have been subtle things like if let's say that the person, I've heard stories that and this is from a previous interview that I did on the show a long time ago, from some woman that said when her mother was a collector of pennies, but from different years, and sorry. And after that, after she died, for like several years, once every couple of months, she would find a penny in her house that was a rare addition, and she knew that her mom was there. You know, so
I'm a rare addition.
Yes, you are.
You know, but they come through. Okay,
And
so one, you have to be open to receiving it. You know, whether it's the image or acknowledging the dream or connecting the penny on the floor. So I had gone to the cemetery to visit my late husband, and he, you know, we would always like play music and sing and whatever. So whenever I go, I bring my plastic bag and I put it on the ground, like I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, and I have this whole conversation with him, and I play different songs, you know, and I just put music on.
Right.
But there were certain songs that were on the playlist that he didn't like. And so when one of them would come up, it's like, okay, I guess it's time for me to go. So that was the cue. Time to go. So, but what was interesting, so I'm walking to my car one day and I open the door and the phone turns on with the Beatles, and it's like, you say goodbye, but I say hello. I just was like, okay, I'm going to get in my car and cry now. But
that is,
you know, I mean, you remember from The Sixth Sense, you know, I see dead people. When we had an individual come to the ranch when we were in Bastrop, his name was Chet Swift. Chet Swift actually looked like Eben Swift, who Eben Swift created Camp Swift, which Camp Swift was the land that Susie was given. And Camp Swift used to be a German internment camp during World War II. Okay. Chet Swift was also his cousin was Taylor Swift. Chet Swift was murdered on the ranch that we're on. When he came to us, he said his grandmother told him to come and act as a shield for Susie, Joel, and I. And he ended up being a shield for Susie, Joel, and I. He ended up getting murdered, and Susie was in a firefight with them. But he said that his grandmother told him to come back to Texas. And he also told me he knew he was going to die in Texas. He just didn't know how soon. But I kind of told him, which, you know, that's who we are. Anyway, so so he when he was revealing things to me, because he was a sniper it was a career sniper. He also worked under Michael Aquino. And so he was revealing things to me, and I said, well, I can't use your AKA. Everyone knows you in the covert world of snipering. They know who that individual is. So I'm going to pray on it, and then I'm going to give you a name. So I said, I'm going to call you Agent McCabe. And he says, that's good, Penny. I like that. Well, after he died, his sister came, and I told the Agent McCabe story, and she turned white. And I was like, what? She said, that's my grandmother's name. I was like, that's funny, because he never said anything. He just said, I like that, Penny. That's good. And then Susie said she was talking to the grandmother, and the grandmother told her about like the guns that she should carry. She was like having a conversation with her with this little gun that you can put in your purse. So, you know, dead people do talk to people in dreams, and also, you know, actually, I don't know what his was. I don't know if he had a dream, but his grandmother told him to come back there.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I'm going to tell another Wayne story. So when he was, so in the movie Ghost, you know, Patrick Swayze is going into the light, and there are all the people that kind of appear and kind of walk him into the light. You know, and you look at it and go, okay, whatever. But when he was actively passing, so at the time I had a different dog, Bitsy, the poodle with the tinfoil hat, superstar dog, 280,000 Facebook fans.
Wow, that's a lot.
Makes me jealous. But anyway, so, and she laid around a lot. And so, you know, you could come to the door and come in the house, and then she'd look up and go, oh, there's a person, and start barking. So for some reason, she would get up off the sofa and go to the front door and just bark and bark and bark and bark and bark, to the point where that I would open the door and go, look, there's nobody there. Close the door. She'd go back on the sofa. It happened 3 times. And so on the 3rd time, I'm like, you know, maybe I should look. And I look, and there are these people, I mean, obviously invisible people, standing outside my front door. So I opened the door, and I'm like, hey, come on in. Then I started looking around my house. I mean, it wasn't that big it was a townhouse. It wasn't that big. And it was jam-packed with people, and there was a bunch of young military veterans in this place. So he had been a medic during the Vietnam era, like the very end, and he managed a hospital in Germany, a military hospital in Germany, and, you know, worked the ER. And so I was like, wow, I was impressed. And what I got was, he had been there to help them transition, and they wanted to be there to help him transition.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Do you ever get a feeling when you go into a place, an intuitive feeling about what that place was, whether it's currently a good place or whether it was a bad place? You ever get those feelings?
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely. You know, because there's residual energy that happens, you know, and so so it's interesting. I did an investigation fairly recently. This restaurant in the downtown of the city that I live in was having glasses move around, which they had been there, and then this activity just started. And so, and outside the back of the restaurant, there's this alley. And so I'm out in the alley smoking, and because I don't want to hear anything. The other two investigators that were there, want to get what's going on and the history and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want any of it because I don't want it to contaminate my impressions. So I'm standing out there and I'm like, okay, because, I got that brain on and there's a truck going over here. And I'm like, okay, they're putting stuff in the basement. I'm like they're bootleggers.
Right.
They're hiding this stuff. Well, that sets off this whole thing because so it turned out that someone had been murdered in the alley and the bootleggers owned the building next door. Because I was like, is there a basement? And they go, no. But in the building next door, there was an opening with kind of like a really big crawl space. And that's where they would stash everything. And it was like a block away from City Hall. So there was all this City Hall politics, which is why they never got caught. And there was a little girl there, and the little girl had been molested by Jack, who is the bootlegger next door. And the mom was really afraid. And so the restaurant had just started serving alcohol.
Oh.
And mom was freaking out and moving everything around, and so there was a conversation that had happened, and it's like, no, there's not any bootleggers and, people in the alley killing people, and, it's okay, and it's calmed down, but that was just like, wow, that's weird.
So would that be considered clearing a house or clearing a scene?
I mean, I have, and sometimes they want to go, sometimes they don't want to go. There is a lot of ethical debate on that, because some people will just go in and clear it, and maybe the ghost doesn't really want to go, and so I only do it if I'm asked to do it. It is not a service that I just will like go into a location and go, oh, there's this stuff going on, and then try to clear it, because that's not for me.
Especially if the person who died in life was a squatter. That could be real tough.
Right. Pain in the patootie.
They don't want
to eviction documents.
Now, I want to branch off a little bit into something that you write on your website. Attached entities, the bad guys of the spirit world. What are attached entities? Okay.
And so there are a lot of people that will call a ghost an entity and which whatever. But when it's an attached entity, it becomes this really different dynamic. And actually, I write about ghost spirits and attached entities with a whole giant section on attached entities in my book, Dark Angels, An Insider's Guide to Ghost Spirits and Attached Entities. And so an attached entity, I'm going to try to keep this simple, is a spirit. Usually it's a very narcissistic spirit, an energy vampire that enters into your personal space inside your auric field and then works to control and manipulate your thought processes. Okay. And so usually there's some emotional energy that the person has. And so, someone I have issues around finances, and I get hit with this $500, charge for something that I'm not expecting to come in. It could set my brain off into like, oh my God, whatever. But it weakens our ability to feel whole and our ability to feel solid.
Hence the reason for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. But it also is kind of like, I like to liken it to the bat phone. It's like you push that button and it calls the entity and says, hey, I have this bad energy. Why don't you come in?
And why don't you move on in? We got a room for rent. You don't even have to pay.
And so it starts sucking off your energy, but it wants to keep you in that place for as long as possible.
Right.
Not everyone has attached entity issues, although it is a lot more common than I like to think about.
So instead of just staying in your house, what an attached entity does is it tries to attach
You are the
itself
house.
to you.
You're the house.
It is attached to you.
Yes. So it doesn't matter where you go, there you are, and so is it.
Right. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I went to this graveyard and now I have an attached entity, but it doesn't work that way. The most common places an entity will attach is there is childhood trauma, and there's a whole disassociation piece that's tied to it, or there's an addiction issue. Those are the two most common. Drugs, alcohol, pornography, it really doesn't matter what it is, but it weakens your senses.
It's a dark energy, and it leaves like an opening for that dark energy to join with your dark energy.
Exactly. So people get really afraid. It's like, well, I might get an entity attachment. It's like, not so much.
But you have to have a problem in order for this entity to get attached. In other words, if you're not dealing with any issues of your own, if you're relatively a happy person, you haven't done any bad things, they're looking for somebody that already has a problem so that they can latch onto it. Is that right?
Right. Well, and it's not even like I have a problem this week. Usually it's like a longer standing issue. I have seen entities attach where someone's in the hospital, has been in the hospital, and they have a lot of issues going on in the hospital. And when they leave, they take the entity with them. So again, there's certain circumstances that it happened. It's not just this random thing, like I went to the bathroom and now I have a piece of toilet paper stuck to my shoe. I mean, it just doesn't
happen so many times.
Doesn't work that way.
It's the worst when you're in a restaurant,
I hate when that happens. Oh, it's just a napkin.
You're like trailing it out all across the restaurant into the street. Not good.
Well, and I have people that come to me to do spirit release, entity release work, and this is what I get. Well, I've been to so many healers, and they, and it just keeps coming back, and it doesn't go away, and that healer obviously wasn't any good, which really irritates me. So then I have to educate them. Because when we're feeling good, when we're not in that cycle of negative thinking, or we're in that lowered emotional state, when we're not, so when we're in it, entity, dang, but when we're not in it, the entity goes over there, they're like hanging out in the shadows, waiting for you to drop your guard so they can come suck off of you. So the person gets the energy work done, and they feel whole, and they can maintain that space for however long they can maintain that space. And then at some point in time, something will happen, they'll get triggered, and the entity's back. So it's not the healer.
They're back.
Pretty much, what my observation is that there is some emotional thing going on or behavioral thing going on. And so that needs to be healed in the person, because now you're not opening the door for the entity. But most people don't really want to hear that, because it takes more than like, bang, you're healed and it's all
you're
good.
Healed. I've had people that have called me and said, there's a portal in my closet, but I moved, and in the new place there's a portal in the closet again. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're the portal. You're creating the portal, because wherever you go,
exactly.
Wherever you go, honey, there you are. So you need to figure out how you're creating this portal to open a door for demonic entities. Yes, and why?
So you actually invite some of these things by the problems that you're having. Now, is it what about other situations where an attached, and by the way, by attached entity, is this a ghost of a person that lived before?
So the most common presentation is a non-corporeal human being. It's interesting because a lot of the times they're men. However,
men have a lot of issues.
Huh?
Men have a lot of issues.
However, I have worked with people that have had, I'm going to say alien attached entities. I had this one woman that I call them the devil guy. I like giving everybody names, because then I can refer to them as something and say mean things about them to their face. And the devil guy who is kind of like the Human Torch, like there are all these flames off of his body. And so when it's an alien entity, they don't speak, and I'm going to say human. They don't have the same emotional reactions. And so communicating with them or, empathizing with their energy is really challenging. And so, I was working with this woman with a number of different things because she was like an entity magnet anyway. But this was one of her big kahunas. And finally, I'm like, the question came up for me. It's like, so what do you want from her? And his comment was, I want her to come with me.
Oh,
and
wow.
Like, well, how would she do that? You're freaking alien devil guy, And
another dimension or another planet.
Well, and so the inference I got was, well, she could leave her body.
Right. In other words, die.
And go. So then I stopped and I looked at her and I said, have you ever tried to commit suicide? And she said twice. So they can sit there and try to exert that level of control. He was a real nasty. So, the spirit world and the unseen dimension is just so vast and so interesting with so many different layers and, things.
That's what they mean when they say interdimensional beings, correct?
Say that again?
That's what they mean when they say interdimensional beings.
So some entities just kind of hang out on the physical plane. There are some that are definitely interdimensional. Obviously, if it's an alien entity, they tend to be a bit more interdimensional. There are some people, and these are the most challenging ones to work with, that have vortexes or portals in their auric field, in their personal space, and they create it. So now they have like this onslaught, they've opened the door for anything to come.
Right. How would you help somebody? I know I can open up portals, but I can't close them. How would you help somebody close those portals?
It's challenging. It's just really about shifting the energy and moving the energy. Everybody is different. So for me to sit there and say, oh, well, this is what I would do, it would be
right.
impossible. But I did have this one lady who, because I tell people my office is the land of the weird. People come with some of the weirdest crap. And I'm like, okay, that's different. She had what looked like, and I'm trying to remember, they were like dragonfly freaking entities. And they would come in a vortex and fly around her space and then fly out. And there were multiple of these things. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like squishing these bugs. And I squished all the bugs. I'm like, how does that feel? She goes, pretty good. So then we kind of take a breathing break. And there's more coming in. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a bit challenging.
Get a fly swatter.
Interdimensional ones are probably the most challenging when they have that vortex there. They're really the most challenging to deal with.
So is an emotional kind of like your emotions would open a portal, and depending upon whether your emotions were happy or dark, those would be the entities that would tend to step through it.
So they never come forward if they're happy. How's that? Or they would never violate your personal space if they're happy. So it's one thing to see grandpa or the lady in the nursing home, but they're not in your personal space. Because one of the things about our auric field, our personal space, is that when there is energy in it, we assume that it's ours. So, and I'll just give you an example. So somebody has some issue going on and they just kind of like energetically dump it in your lap. So they don't say help me, but now you feel responsible for like, oh, well, maybe I should look it up online, or hey, what about this? We've all had that experience, and it's because they've taken the problem and they put it in our auric field, and now we think that it's our problem to solve, and many times it's not. And so it's kind of that dynamic with the entity, and so I mean, one of the things that I tell people that actually have a real entity and not a thought form, or they think it used to be, 20 plus years ago, that people blamed all of their problems on a past life. It's like, oh, I must have had a past life.
Right.
Whatever. And now everybody has entity attachments, and they blame all their problems on their entity attachments. But to me, if you do know that you have an entity,
well, what's the cause of your problem? This guy over here. Is he in the room with us now? Yeah.
Well, one of my
that gets you locked up real fast.
Yeah.
My points is, if you come to me and say I have an entity attached, you already threw up a red flag, because the entity's goal is for you to not know about it. Because if you don't know about it, you're not going to do anything to try to change it.
Right. So as soon as wasn't that a Barbara Streisand movie, On a Clear Day, where she recognizes all of her past lives through hypnotherapy?
Oh man, I can't watch Barbara Streisand.
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't know.
I learned from her. She was a mentor to me, so I learned her entire catalog. Now I find out who she is 60 years later, because I didn't research her. I'm like, oh my God, you're blocked.
Have you ever dealt with an attached entity that somebody who liked the attached entity and was happy? It was like,
my God. Yes, and it's scary. So there are, and I'm going to tell you this story first, and then I'll go into the more scientific definition. So this was years and years and years ago, and I'm working at a psychic fair. So I was just beginning to build my private practice, and I'm at this psychic fair, and this guy sits down, and I see this energy going like all over his body, and I'm like, dude, you got this like female entity like all over you. And he was like, yeah, ain't it great?
It's probably one of those succubus things, those women.
Yeah, succubus, which he liked.
But there are spirits, and when I say the term, I think people will recognize, that are called incubuses and succubuses, who want to have sex with the person. And so, they'll climb into bed with you, they'll, do whatever. They're kind of challenging too, because many times, the person is like close to sleeping, they're falling asleep when all of this stuff happens. Right. When you have work with those people, sometimes the details are just like, I don't know that I really want to.
Yeah. Let me tell you. No, I don't want to hear it. No, don't want to hear
it.
Pretty
much. But yeah, I mean, so the ones that want to keep them tend to have that kind of an attachment, but any other ones because the incubuses and succubuses, they're just there for sex energy, and
right.
Get that from you, so there's not this negative. I had this one client who, this psychic, I guess, kept telling her that, her soulmate was coming and she could feel him, already. And so she felt this thing, and, time passes, and like, there's no physical person that turns up, but there's this entity that's there that she invited in. And now they have this like relationship going on, and all that. Only to find out that now she has this very attached entity. And she was like really pissed off at the woman for creating that dynamic in her. And so she went from enjoying it to being appalled by it.
Sounds like my marriages.
We should share stories.
Right?
I got plenty.
I knew they were coming too, but that's one question that you had asked before that my sister Susie was like, yeah, I get it now. Because we all have that same question. If we are psychic, how did we not see this, right? Because I think we put up a block somehow.
I mean, I just say, well, I'm a member of the Dumb Girl Club. Well, which I started. I started the Dumb Girl
Did you start
Club,
it?
because some of the most...
Is it for members only?
Some of the most... we even have honorary guy members.
Okay.
Some of the most brilliant women and talented women I know, when it comes to their relationships, they just, I think tied to that is that there are self-worth issues, and they're not willing to sit there and go, okay, this is crap, gotta go.
Right.
Do you know who I blame for that? Do you know who I blame for self-worth issues? The
Who?
father of these women. Because because I think it's a father's job to instill worth and confidence and everything else in his. That's where the father comes in. Because if you feel validated by a male figure in your life who you respect, and he puts you on a pedestal and says you can do anything and makes you feel good about yourself, you're going to be more confident and less likely to attract idiots in your relationship. I blame fathers if that doesn't happen.
Well, I mean, I think for myself, and I'm going to just speak my own personal truth here. The family I grew up with was pretty toxic, and I have a million brothers and sisters. And so they would be mean or whatever, but you don't have anybody else to go to. So they exhibit bad behavior. They're mean to you. You kind of have a cooling off period, but then you re-engage them because they're your family and you can't leave when you're 6 years old. And so you learn this pattern of, I will accept this abuse and I'll just kind of cool off inside and then I will re-engage. And so it just keeps you, I mean, for me, it was definitely a learned cycle, and it was like, oh, I don't have to do that. Wow.
Well, I think once you realize for myself, the greatest father is Jesus and God. That's my father. Not my earthly father, because I found out my earthly father really wasn't my father. So there's that. But there is healing.
That's the topic for the next time.
Right. There is healing for us who tend to try to do the work and try to help others. That's healing in that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and sometimes, your own deeper truths come up when you're helping somebody else.
Exactly.
Where can people get your books? We're running out of time. I want to make sure that, especially your latest one. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Okay. So my latest book is, dang, it was me all along. And I don't have the Dark Angels book. I need to just have a stack of books.
You do.
Yeah, so when you come on the show, so we can put them all up on the screen.
I have 3 of the 7. So, yeah. All of my books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, et cetera, et cetera. You can get them from my webpage. I do charge shipping because I'm not Amazon. But they all come autographed. So if you would like an autographed copy, please stop by my website, soulhealer.com. That's SOULHEALER.com. And you can find all of my articles. You can reach out to me if you would like to schedule a private consultation. Whether it's an intuitive evaluation or you need some counseling or someone to help you kind of sort through what's going on in life. All that is available at soulhealer.com. And my last shameless plug is Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central, is Thursday Night Live with Dr. Rita Louise, where you can join me and get a free on-air psychic reading for free. Thursday nights, if you go to Just Energy Radio, so that's 3 words, Just Energy Radio, click the live stream button, 7 p.m. Central. You get to hang out with me, which is really a lot of fun because I'm like this all the time. And
and that's a good. Listen, I love your personality, so
yes,
don't change anything about yourself.
Well, sometimes people wait for me to change, and become something different. It's like, no, I'm pretty much a one size fits all kind of gal. What you see is what you get.
Yes.
We love you and appreciate having you on the program. Can't wait for your next appearance. And please, folks, get the new book and go to soulhealer.com for more interesting topics. She's got some great articles up on there as well. Dr. Rita Louise, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys. See you next time.
You got it. Bye-bye. Dr. Rita Louise here on the Awake Nation. I love her. She's just fantastic.
I do too.
And I love being able to get into some esoteric topics with her.
She's
not
very
always
broad based.
Yeah, she's got some great stuff on there. I mean, the articles, folks, you can spend a whole day.
And great books. Please go Google her and go get her books either on her web or at Amazon.com.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it is Wellness Wednesday. That means Dr. Lana Contos will be coming up to join us. So don't go anywhere. We shall return.